Hello, hello. Welcome to the 5Talents podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the 5Talents podcast. We are super excited today to have an amazing guest, Mr. Brent Barcus, because we are talking about net operating income, commercial real estate, a little bit of passive investing, how to raise capital. And Brent has one of those backgrounds that it was just a treat. I go, I definitely want to talk with you on our podcast. And he's got just an amazing background in music. I'll let him tell his story. But if you know Shania Twain, Elton John, and the band DC Talks, then you may have already heard some of his music. So it's pretty cool. But I'm going to turn it over to Brent for a real introduction and let him tell us what he does today and how he got into commercial real estate. And just Brent, if I can, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Who is Brent Barcus?
Yeah.
What do you do today? We'll just start a great conversation here, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on today. It's awesome. And who am I? Let's see. I've been in music a long time in audio, and started out. I came to Nashville right out of high school and studied music at a small school called Belmont University. And then ended up in the music scene here in Nashville, playing for different artists, playing on records and being on the road. Ended up in different bands, playing with different people like Shania Twain, like you mentioned, and DC Talk and Kenny Loggins, and played some shows with Elton John. Got to play
Kenny Loggins.
Super Bowl halftime. We did some fun shows. So.
And you played the Super Bowl halftime.
Yeah, so a lot of that, a lot of fun traveling, and then got kind of burned out on the road. Ended up in the studio in LA, lived in LA for a while. Now back in Nashville, and had a studio in LA, and created music for different writers and publishers and co-writes, and then ended up coming back to Nashville and have a little studio here called I-65 Music, where we create branded music and audio for brands and agencies, do film and TV, post-production work as well, a lot of voiceovers and stuff like that. So anything audio is kind of our thing. So, and real estate's always been in my, I think it's in my blood. My dad was in commercial real estate growing up, and he's a super smart guy. I've always highly respected my dad, always did cool deals. And he always would tell me, if I had to go to college or my wedding, he'd go sell a piece of property to pay for something, and I was like, that's pretty cool. He'd always have something that he could sell or cash flow from that he'd pay for a big event in our lives, So I grew up around real estate. It's always, I've always been into it more on the residential side, doing maybe some flips, rentals, short-term rentals. I've done a few new construction projects for fun and just for a little side money, but I've always been in the music audio business. But here I am, and kind of starting to really in the last year or so, I've done a lot of research, started a podcast as kind of my journey into more of the commercial side and investing in multifamily and commercial real estate. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, really just gaining insight, learning from you guys like you, and doing podcasts, and hopefully getting ready to invest in multifamily.
Boom. What a story on you. So I'm going to break this down a little bit, but yeah, I'm appreciative, humbled you join us for a good conversation. And it was a pleasure being on your podcast too.
Yes, thanks for coming on.
And meeting you. I go, oh, this is really fun. Like, I like Brent, so I'm gonna have him on ours too. So there's a few things that I heard here. Dad was in commercial real estate. You had a background with single family. You came out of college, I guess, in that area, and started in the music side of it. So I definitely want to talk about all of these things, one at a time. You grew up with your dad in real estate, and I have a 3-year-old now and a almost 2-year-old. And I love when she says the word, "Oh, is that your real estate investment, Daddy?" And I just, man, my heart melts. And I've started taking her with me to properties. When she was younger, we would actually, before COVID, like the first year, she would go look at properties with me. We skipped a year, and then now we just started again, right? And I'm trying to teach her the concept of, yes, Daddy invests. We put our money in real estate, and it gives us money back. So I'm just gonna like stop there. And what do you remember like about your dad doing that? How old were you when the first time you heard him say, commercial real estate, and what did he do, and what are those first memories? If I can take you back, that'd be awesome.
Thanks. Let's see. I do remember, oh gosh, maybe elementary days. He had this cool. He converted this gas station. I was in a suburb of St. Louis, west of town, in a cool suburb. I lived in Kirkwood, Missouri. Grew up there, and he had bought an old gas station, I remember, and converted it into his brokerage. So it was really cool. Commercial, had his name, had Barcus Real Estate on there.
Oh, that's
was our
awesome.
last name. And he was just I was so impressed. I mean, he was a go-getter, and was always doing land deals. And so I remember my mom and dad always, trading properties. We ended up with these cool things, like Dad would, he'd buy a piece of land, and then he'd trade something. Like we ended up with this condo at the Lake of the Ozarks, which is a great place to go. It's like lake with, boats and skiing and everything. So he ended up trading this piece of land he had forever for this lake house, so we ended up enjoying that for several years, so he's always trading and doing deals and developing here and there. And so I just always remember him doing fun, interesting deals. He was always out and about, and I'm sure there were times in the 80s where it was tough. I remember there were times where he was probably like, how am I going to get another deal? But he always seemed to, he just had that entrepreneur thing and could make deals happen, and was always outgoing, looking at properties. And so he did a great job of commercial, and ended up with a couple office buildings that have been great cash flow for them. And so they're doing great. So they're still in St. Louis. And anyway, that's kind of my memories of just always loving, I feel like and on the Sundays, we definitely drive around and look at properties, houses, look at that architecture. And so I always love that. And that's something I still do. I always love driving around, man. Look how that looks, or, different houses. And anyway, it's something I'm always my eyes are always on. And all the travel I've done with the music thing, I mean, it's like, I feel like I've experienced so many all over the world, just so many different types of places and architecture. So it's always been a passion of mine to be involved in it somehow. So.
Wow. Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was looking for. I go, I wonder what my little one's going to remember. Cause I think about it, from my perspective too. I kind of used to say that I'm a second gen real estate investor, but actually, my parents reminded me, my grandparents, they owned a single bedroom house, and there was like 7 brothers and sisters. So they had a bunch of aunts and uncles, and my parents on my mom's side, same little bitty house. And I see it now. So like they owned that house there. My dad was a second gen real estate investor, because he had the house that we lived in, and then we rented out another. Yeah. And I go, okay, well, I'm actually the third gen real estate investor, when I think about it. And, every one of us is a little different. So now when I'm telling my 3-year-old about real estate investments, we're looking at apartment buildings and going into single family houses. Also, we still have a portfolio there, but we're taking her there and kind of showing her. And 3 years old, I go, man, this is what I want her to do. She doesn't have to do this forever. Yeah. But if she knows how to make money, and my son knows how to make money, then they can do whatever the freak they want, whatever their goal, dreams, hopes, and desires. So
well, it definitely made an impression, because my sister's in the business. She's an agent, real estate agent in St. Louis still. So she's in the biz, and I have an older brother that, he's not in the business, but it's definitely made an impact on us, where we still are all very interested in it. So it definitely gets passed down for sure.
It gets there, right? And you pursued your dreams. I would imagine if you played a Super Bowl and with some amazing people, those audio music dreams, right? Of being a kind of rock star, and you got to do the real estate at the same time. So that's really cool, man.
It's been fun. Yeah. It's a fun journey.
Okay. So that was when you were younger, and then college, did you say, hey, I'm gonna go be a rock star? Or was that the goal, or what was the goal? How did you get there?
Not really. I always loved in the 80s, I grew up I mean, I love top 40 radio, you know, and so I was always, my mom, you know, they were very pro. My brother was 6 years older. He was a drummer. So we had a lot of loud drums in the house. So, you know, he had a couple high school bands. I just kind of like loved live music. And so I just gravitated to the guitar. So my mom was faithful every Saturday. I went to guitar lessons and, so I just love to sit on that into my bed and like learn songs off the radio. I had a cassette player, you know, the little jam box, and I'd record the top songs, and then I'd slow them down, do whatever I could to learn what was going on, like figure out the chords and the parts, and I just loved it, you know. And so that's in high school. That's all I love sports, but it wasn't something that, you know, I could tell I didn't end up succeeding in it in high school. So I figured, hey, I'm gonna go play. I'll do something with my time. So I just engrossed myself in music, you know, and then I got passionate enough to want to pursue it, hopefully try it as a career, you know, even though from the Midwest, I was like, you know what, you can't make a living playing music, you know, you're crazy. My dad said, hey, my dad did, he struck a deal. He was the deal guy, you know. He said, if you want to go to Nashville and go to school, you know, I'm willing to let you go and pay for it, but you got to do business too. If you do some business courses, I'll be willing to support that. So we had they had a great program. It was called Commercial Music with a Music Business Emphasis. So there were there were classes on copyright and songwriting and publishing.
There's so many avenues in music. It's
so like that's what I did. And
I can play music, but there's this huge industry.
In
every segment of music, right?
Yeah, there's record labels, but so no, it's great. So that's what I did. I came down here, but you know, my heart was playing, performance. I love playing.
Yeah.
So, but I got in these dorm rooms, and all these kids from all over the country were all great musicians. So it really made me go, wait, I'm from this small little Midwest town. I better step on it if I'm going to compete, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like a woodshed, all these dorm rooms, these players like all night playing, you know, practicing. And so I just,
I didn't think about that part.
I just dug in and like,
school attracted. So
I just dug in and playing as many shows as I could. And, you know, being in a music town, these young musicians, everybody's starting to hear about things going on around town, playing opportunities, you know, a country or Christian acts or whatever, pop music, you know, young artists going out and needing bands. So you start hearing about auditions and things. You're like, hey, I'm in this town, you know, and so you start hearing about all these music opportunities. So after a couple of years, friends of mine from the dorms were starting to get gigs playing on the road, you know, and playing on records. And so people start referring you, and it's just that network, you know, you got to build the network. So
even in that space.
Yeah. It's all
right. It's all network.
It just took off, you know, and so doors opened, and I started getting calls to audition for jobs, and it just kind of, so I was like, Dad, I hadn't finished school. And so there was this kind of tug at me, like, I feel, you know, and my dad was like, hey, why don't you go try this for 6 months? You can always finish, come back, you know, go play for a little bit. That's why you're here, you know, if that's what you want to try. So I did. I took 6 months off and went on this tour, and from there, I just never looked back. I never went back to school. So I've got I don't know if I have like a year and a half or two left, but it's been so long. But I still stay in touch with my professor, my guitar professor, and I are still in touch. And he's like, if you ever want to come back and finish, you let me know. And I was like, all right, you know.
That's awesome.
Anyway.
Well,
so the music thing just kind of snowballed. And as I was working on the road or playing on records and stuff, I just kept expanding my skill set and trying to be, you know, as diverse as I could. So, you know, it's really a hard industry to stay busy in. So as I was working, I just tried to continue to like find new skills to kind of add so that I could be hireable, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I've always tried to do. And anything I do is just try to learn from others that are the greats, and in any industry, and learn and try to mimic. And like I was doing into my bed, you know, trying to play songs of other people that were successful, you know, and then take those skills and apply them, and hopefully, you know, be successful in that area. So that's what I've always done. So that's what I'm doing in real estate. I mean, you know, I got so busy in music, real estate, you know, I had, you know, we do things with our personal residence, or I might do a single flip or a construction, but I was always so busy doing what I do that, you know, never thought of it full time or, but I love the idea of the passive income, and now thinking long term with commercial is kind of where my mind is right now. So,
yeah, this is perfect. This is a good kind of you know, segue-ish, right? So you were working, and when you're on the road, you don't really have time to. I'm imagining you don't have time to go do this, find a property, look at it, analyze it, buy it, do that. What was your first deal, and where was it in this timeline? You know, was it a single family house? Did you do a flip? Or you mentioned a few things in the single family side. what was your first one, and where was it
Yeah,
at the time?
I think my eyes opened to it the first time when I came down for college. My dad was in real estate. He came down and said, "Hey, why are we going to spend 4 years of you renting an apartment when we could buy a condo?" And he was thinking that way. I was like, okay, whatever. So we found this great old building on West End in Nashville, a really cool area, and he bought this single 1-bedroom apartment for me to live in while I was in school. Well, I know his brain was moving. He's thinking, I'm going to invest in this, and we're going to do fine now. So we did that, and I remember refining or doing something at one point. I was like, the light bulb was like, wait a minute, this thing's gone up in value. Now I have this equity, and I can roll this into something else.
Yeah.
And so he was slowly, just by showing me that this is a great way to build equity and roll into something bigger. And so I did that. That was my first kind of like, okay, so I ended up buying a 2-bedroom, and I bought a 2-bedroom condo. We gutted it, my wife and I, and renovated it, and then that obviously raised the value of that. And then we ended up moving to LA. So we took that money, we moved to LA, lived. We didn't know which part of LA we were going to live in, so we rented for a little bit, but we ended up buying a condo there. Totally gutting it, so at this point we were just doing our own properties, but we were making out really well because we were buying low and renovating and then holding it for a while, for 2 years at least, so we wouldn't have the capital gains, and then we'd have that equity without tax and then move it to something else. So we kept doing that, and then we moved back to Nashville, like I was saying, and we ended up buying a lot in a really good area, and I did a new construction, a tear down new construction. That was a flip that I spent a year on, and that was great. And then we ended up doing some short-term rentals, cabins in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which we really like that area. So that's a great area. If anybody's out there that looking for short-term rentals, single family, Gatlinburg is a hot area. So
yeah, okay. Well, good. I'm gonna pause you here because this is everything is very helpful. I'm gonna go back and ask you a couple of questions, right?
Yeah.
In everything that you learned about networking for your next gig, you said, hey, I realized networking led me to a lot of that success in the music industry. What lesson can you give somebody here that's trying to realize that, what, I absolutely need to be networking in the commercial real estate side? It's still the same. Give us the insight on like how to go network.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as it's doing things like these. It's you got to reach out. You got to have a presence on socials. You got to just put yourself out there. I honestly, even though all these years of feeling comfortable networking in the audio and in the music world, for me, like when it came time about a year ago, and I thought, okay, I want to do a podcast, in a different field that I don't have years of experience in.
Yeah.
It was a little bit that fear of like, oh, what are people going to think? Or, I don't have the knowledge yet, but it's almost like I had to bust through those thoughts. Like we've talked about, like, and just put myself out there. I'm not going to hide anything. This is just a journey for me in a new area that I want to learn. And I thought, why not start meeting people, put a podcast together that's like a journey, and bring people along that want to get educated as well, and get people on the show if they're willing to come on early and talk, and and just not act like I know any more than anybody else, but just like, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to learn from these people I have on the show. It's a great way to learn, So stuff like that, and going to networking events. I just got back. We talked about from Dallas with Think Multifamily and learning about analyzing deals. So I'm just trying to like get and from those, even the evenings, you spend all day, grinding on analysis, but then at night you're around people that have flown in from all over the country to do the same thing. So you're meeting people, you're meeting brokers, you're meeting investors that have equity, you're meeting passive and active investors. So it's really great just to get out and do things like that. So
yeah, okay. Well, this is awesome. On the networking side, I heard you started a podcast, you went to the events, you put yourself out there in another uncomfortable position. If you don't ever say I'm new, and you don't ever say I'm just learning, I'm starting, if you can't push past that and like swallow some pride a little bit, between you being on the Super Bowl stage, playing at halftime, okay, guy's an expert in his arena and his craft, to be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm new in this spot, I want to go learn a little bit, is it okay? And when you give yourself permission to do that, now you are also giving others permission to teach you information, to give you, educate, to tell you, because you're saying you're coming from a place of saying, can you show me how to do this?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I know what's going on, I don't need to learn from you. Well, okay, you know what's going on. Thanks for your time. I
Yeah,
don't need
good
to.
luck. Good
There's
luck.
no reason I need to give you any information, right?
Yeah.
You know it all, my friend.
Yeah.
So I really like that mindset. I think it plays well to commercial real estate and multifamily investing and building passive income. If you're listening now to our show and you don't have financial freedom from passive investing, that's okay. That's what we're doing, is we're trying to learn how to get there from one guest, another guest. And so I would encourage you to it's okay to state, like, I don't have that same experience. Right. And also on the podcast, what a big leap for you yourself is you are creating your own environment of which to obtain that education by seeking out others that maybe already done it. They've been there, and you're taking that like one-on-one master class, because you can ask them whatever question you want to ask it, right?
Yeah. Now, I say, to be fair, I mean, since I'm in audio, I didn't have the leap of like, I don't know anything about equipment and editing. And so thankfully I got, I'm in a studio.
You had that
here
part good. Yeah.
So that wasn't a break. I didn't have to break through that barrier, but still, just the interviewing people about a content that I'm not super confident about, it's hard. It's definitely a fear that you got to kind of kick down the door and say, hey, I'm going to ask these questions, and if I sound like I have no clue, then but I'm saying it's the podcast is kind of part of the journey. You know what I mean? And to learn, and that's what I love about it, is it gives me a vehicle to hear from people that I'd never be able to talk to, like you. And so
yeah,
it's great, from all over the country or world. So.
And you know what I like also about it is you're documenting your journey from the beginning till wherever you end up.
Yeah.
And there are always people, if you think you're a newbie in real estate investing, and if you're listening and you're thinking, should I start a podcast? Or, man, what a great way to get going, because there's always somebody that has less information or knowledge from you than you do. And you just, sharing what you do know, like Brent's background that he just shared with me right now, was like super helpful for me, because I get to take this into account. I'm like, man, I'm gonna share the same thing with my daughter and take my own experiences, learn from yours. And, just, it's amazing. There's always somebody that's going to learn from your journey, regardless of where you think you are or not on your journey. So,
yeah, love it.
Yeah. Hello. You're listening to the 5Talents podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5Talents podcast. We really appreciate it. Okay, so you also are starting to go to conferences and events, like you. So you mentioned you're at a weekend. Tell us about this weekend. What did you do? What did you learn? Just tell us about that. So somebody who's not in the world, they're like, what are you going a weekend for? Go ahead.
So yeah, this was great. I'd heard about it. Well, obviously I'm a huge podcast listener. And so this was one called Think Multifamily. They're it's a husband and wife, Mark and Tamil Kinney. They're out of Dallas, Plano, and super successful in multifamily, and have a great podcast. Anyway, they do a yearly 2-day, it's like a serious in-depth workshop on analysis of apartment buildings. And so I saw it on their website, and I thought, look, this is another area that I didn't grow up with Excel spreadsheets. I'm not really a mathematician. I'm a musician, so, but I know that here's another thing that I want to understand. If I'm going to look at deals and build these relationships with brokers, and they're going to send me these OMs, I want to be able to do a quick and dirty, analysis of something, of a property, and say, hey, is this something I should dig in deeper with a partnership, or look into in more detail, or just let it go, and not waste a lot of time. Because my audio sense and my background is to detail everything to death, where I might spend 8 hours on something, crafting something where I'd want to, so I could be looking at this and second guessing the whole deal and spend way too much time, And so just going to something like that where Mark can kind of like, break it down to where it's like you have this Excel analyzer that he's already spent years building. So you get that, and then you get there and you're around people that are still have the same, are trying to learn the same thing. Just be able to put your eyes on something and get comfortable looking at the numbers and the different sections of the analysis to where you feel comfortable making a decision, even in 20 minutes, if it's something you want to pursue in greater detail or not. So even that made me more comfortable moving forward with continuing to invest in my time with brokers and get deals from them. So it was a 2-day. We analyzed 13 deals, all sizes, massive to smaller, from like 100 doors up, and loved it. And then at night we had some, and it was great. Is he also had some sponsors that were, commercial brokers. He had some really great people that are part of their team that they use on a deal basis. A syndication attorney, which was awesome to hear about, and the commercial broker was great because post-COVID, just some of the new guidelines for lending, and so that was great to take notes on kind of how things were structured, the kind of reserves you need for COVID reserves or not, all these different things. So just learned a ton. Stuff you just can't without it. I'd just be reading some, my Kindle trying to catch up on all this information, but I get it all in 2 days. So
yeah. Okay, so there's so many things here. If you're listening to, you have to realize that when you're buying a multifamily apartment complex, what happens is you need to analyze a trailing 12, which is a 12-month profit and loss statement, income, expenses, and then your rent rolls to make sure everything kind of flows in line with the different units and per dollar per square foot, and then how much each unit goes for, 1 bedroom versus 2 bedroom, small one and small, big two, whatever. And when you put this in your, like a quote unquote deal analyzer or an Excel spreadsheet, it's got like 112 lines top to bottom. And there's like 8 tabs. They're like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I've never seen a thicker spreadsheet than this one, right? And the first time is very daunting. It took me like half a day, I think. 4 or 5 hours.
My eyes were glazing over.
Yeah, I didn't take a class. I didn't have the YouTube, somebody walking me through, which I should have done now that I realized. But anyways, it took me forever, and I just like didn't know how to do it. And the second time, it took me a little less. And it's third time, and fourth time, and fifth time, and 20th time, and 30th time, and it takes me less and less and less. Still time now, and every time I look at it, it gets a little different. Well, if you don't know how to do that, you're really not going to know if it's a good deal or not. You can't by if you don't analyze the numbers. And if you are a new investor, there's what I like about this whole process that Brent just said is he said yes. There's a program and a weekend, and it's going to cost some money and it costs some time, and you got to say yes. Like you got to go, yep, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go down to wherever the conference is. I remember my first year and a half, we went to I like 12 or 13 different events, events. I had a full-time job, much like your entrepreneur business owner, but I would go Friday, Saturday, come back Sunday, Friday, Saturday. And it was like every single week, it felt like, but you got to say yes to this stuff because you start to educate yourself and learn. And then you hear the same stuff a few different times. And then you hear it 13 times like you did in one weekend. And now you're like, okay, the 14th time at the house, it makes sense. You're like, great. Now I know what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah, starting to click. And the tabs start to, because Mark, he's like, oh, jump over to the financials tab. I'm like, where's that? I don't know. It's like, there's like 13 or 14 of them,
Yeah.
So just trying to keep up at first, because you're looking at, it's like, digital software for music, you could spend all day when you first learning software. It's like, you don't know where any of the buttons are, or any, it's the same thing. So it's familiarity and just putting the time in to learn something new, so
this is awesome. Thanks for letting us learn through your journey, because I'm getting educated all the way through as well. And so is everyone else. So that's on the network side. So important, so valuable. You mentioned something else, right? Is networking, learning, and being hireable. And that's how you said those few things to have success in the music spot. And it's the same success points on our side, learning, networking, and instead of maybe being hireable, you need to put in there, build a team.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there, okay, I met other investors, I met other maybe key principals or net worth or liquidity or capital raisers and that kind of stuff. So I encourage you, anybody that's listening to Brent's story and just us conversation, like you have to say yes, and you got to take action, and you got to go do these things, right?
Yeah, it's cool. What you're saying reminds me of like, like a general partnership, as we talk about the different people that are bringing different skill sets to that partnership. It's a lot like it's like a band, I mean, really think about, like, I think of the music or making an album where you have all these musicians come together. Everybody's playing a different instrument, but has a skill set that hopefully, if you're bringing the right team together, are going to create something that's original and, that's desirable for other people to listen to, so it's kind of the same. It's cool. To me, there's a correlation of what's my skill set, what can I bring? Like you're saying, it could be analyzing, but the analyzing could end up just being more for just so I know a little bit about it. Maybe there's somebody that's what they excel at. Maybe mine, I'm bringing more of the investors in, or the network of brokers or whatever. But that partnership, you gotta, like you're saying, be hireable. You gotta bring something that's gonna attract to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So now you're on this mindset of, you've done single family in multiple different routes. You bought, you've held, you flipped, you've refinanced. For those that didn't catch that earlier, buy, rehab it. In maybe this case, he didn't rent it, he lived in it, but he refinanced it, pulled some cash out, and then went and put it in the next deal, a bigger deal, and kind of more of that capital. But all of those things, and then short-term rentals, but now commercial real estate. So what was the switch from your single family investing to commercial real estate investing? How did that come about? Was there a paradigm shift, or what? I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a light bulb or anything. Obviously with my father's background in commercial, it might have been some podcasts. It could have been yours. It could have been, I'm not sure. I just started kind of listening to, I love the work that I do, and I've always, been in this industry. But I think in getting older, I'm starting to think about long term, and hey, what's life going to look like when the kids are out of the house, and I'm just trying to think of maybe my mindset. When you're younger, I was out playing music and on the road and doing my thing. But now I think, as I start thinking about just life, I don't know how much time I have, and it's going to be, how long it is, so. I don't know. I guess that those things started to weigh in my mind and think, okay, what can I do? Maybe what am I interested in that could possibly be great investments and to help maybe in the future, and as I started reading books on multifamily, I was like, wow, I'd never even heard of these structures, syndication, never heard that term before, and pooling money, and how are, you always see these big complexes, the apartment complexes. How are people buying these? Is it just the insurance companies buying them, and where's all this? Yes, yeah. But just the idea of these partnerships and scaling through those, and be able to get involved in larger projects that could then return and have passive income, and not have that one door where I've experienced that. We had the short-term rentals, like I've explained. You're just dealing with so much, people not getting books. All you have is one empty place, it's just the scalability of having multiple doors. I just think there's just so much upside to that. So I'm really kind of focused my efforts on multifamily right now, because I like the scalability of it and the pooling to buy larger properties. So
agreed. Well, what a great mindset. So now you're kind of helping friends and family, other people, understand a little bit more through your own journey too, right? I'm sure people ask you, and
yeah, I hope so. Yeah, people want to know why the heck are you doing a podcast not in music, and so yeah. I mean, it's like we talked about that. It's like I just, because it gives me a vehicle to learn, and so then it's great. So I think it is it makes people inquisitive and to, hey, what are you talking about? What's this multifamily thing? So it's a great way to start dialoguing with family and friends about, hey, we got to look at these investments. This is a great way for us to possibly put some money into these, assets to have long-term cash flow. So anyway, that's kind of the journey, is to obviously meeting, potential investors, accredited investors would be great as we continue to grow our network. But right now it's more just encouraging and informing friends and family. So
yeah. my network has definitely changed quite a
Yeah.
bit. I have core friends that I've known forever. I've, like 5 of my buddies are pretty much my brothers right at this point. Those guys aren't changing. They haven't changed for 20 something years now.
Right.
30, actually, probably I'm 41. They haven't changed for like 30 years. I undercut. And then there's like a bigger pool of buddies that I worked with for 10, 12, 13 years in tech. And so they're my friends as well. But it went from, a whole bunch of them to just a few of them now that I've left tech and, still hang out with it and have great conversations with. And when we catch up, it's like we never missed each other. But then there's this whole other network now that are many more very well-to-do individuals that I'm learning from, finding out how they created their first million, their second million, their fifth million, their 10th million. They've created financial freedom. They've created passive income. They've created wealth in a different vehicle than just working for a W-2 paycheck. Some business owners and entrepreneurs that are also investing for tax reduction, tax mitigation, big capital events where now they can reduce their tax bills and just completely wipe them out. And so there is that part that, I don't hear it often, but anytime I hear network, I'm like, man, I might as well touch on it because you're going to build an even more amazing network than you already have, just with some really great people that are like freely willing to share.
It's fun. Yeah. It's been fun so far in the short journey that I've, and be, like I said, going to Texas for the workshop, you meet great people, and it's always fun getting out and meeting people in a different industry. So I'm really enjoying it. So
right on. Well, what advice can you? It's something we haven't talked about. I know we've gone around the gamut, but what advice can you give somebody that is just doesn't know where to start? They're like, yeah, I want to invest in real estate, but I just need a couple of tactical things. Like, what do I do to get started?
Well, obviously, podcasts. I mean, yours, 5T Cree. These podcasts to me have been so informative. I mean, gosh, just to be able to like throw my earbuds on at night or on the weekends, my Kindle, and just read and listen to people with way more wisdom than I have in this industry. So I'd say podcasts and gosh, I don't know what else. Podcasts and books, and just be a sponge. Just soak it up. And if you're really interested in learning more about commercial and multifamily real estate, that's what I've been doing. Just learning from people that have had great success in the industry, and go to events and then contact you, contact me. We can talk more about it.
Yeah, put yourself on the spot, man. Just
go
do it. Go do it. Say yes, and I love it. So thanks, Brent.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation, brother. I'm really appreciative. Before you go, if somebody wants to reach out to you, connect with you, network, get in your world, where do they go? How do they contact you?
Thanks. Well, so I have LinkedIn, Brent Barcus. I have a new email address for real estate investing, Brent.Barcus, my last name, Barcus, at i65capitalinvestments.com. That's my new email address. And then I've got the podcast, which is the NOI podcast. But if you search my name, then it'll come up, Brent Barcus, the NOI podcast, which is net operating income. Mm-hmm. And you can listen to that on any of the, wherever you listen to your podcast of choice. Yeah, so those are the places: LinkedIn, Facebook, if we're live right now. Anyway, I'd love to connect and reach out. I always love meeting new people that are interested in commercial real estate. So
right on.
Or music. So
or music. I love it.
Yeah. Any producers out there?
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, before you go too, I want to ask a couple more questions. So DC Talks. Come on. I love.
You're going way back, man.
I was, I don't know. I graduated in high school in 98. So somewhere in that time, I'm 41. I remember hearing, what would they do if I knew that I was Jesus freak? I let, forgive my singing.
That's all right.
That song was like on the radio. It was the first Christian song I think that I heard maybe on a regular radio station. And I love that song, man. I love that song. And so you toured in the same time?
Yeah. So that would have been more because I had already jumped over to country music by 90. So that would have been more my time with about 93
Well,
to
I
90.
don't know if my
That's okay.
years were right.
No, 93.
I'm
That
sure
was
your
my.
tour was more
That's all
accurate.
right. 93 to 96-ish was that time period
Okay.
for me. So a while
I
back.
heard it
I
on the
hated
radio
myself.
after you were on tour.
I
Is
was
probably
super
what happened.
young, super young. I'm dating myself.
Well, man,
Anyway, so that was it.
that's
Yeah, that
awesome.
was early time period for me, and then ended up over in country and pop and all that. So just kind of
And
kept snowballing.
what was Shania Twain like? What?
You know, it was a great experience. Super great business lady.
Mhm.
Her and her husband, who he was I don't know if you know much about him, Mutt Lang. He's a rock producer, but go back and look at his discography. It's
His
amazing. So I
discography.
learned a ton about him from music and production, and gathered another guy that I just soaked up everything because he had done so much, hit songs in the 80s and 90s. So anyway, I learned a lot from him and took those skills and moved on, but it was great.
Yeah.
Learned a lot.
And Elton John, what in the
Yeah,
world?
that was just a few. That wasn't, I don't have any direct contact. That was just a few shows with him. So nothing too much with him. More, I spent a lot of years, the 8 years with Shania was a long time. So.
Wow. Cool. Is there anything we didn't talk about today or anything you wanted me to ask I just didn't get to? Anything you want to bring some exposure to before?
No, it's all great. Thanks just for having me on, and pleasure to be here. And I thank you for being on my podcast so early and supporting my journey. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, for everyone that's listening, go to our podcast, the 5Talents podcast, and subscribe, rate, and review. It would be amazing. Leave us a written review. Go over to Brent's, do the same thing, the NOI podcast, and tell them you heard us or our conversation. And I would be blessed if you dropped our name so he knows and I know as well. And everyone that's listening, we'll see you on the next show. Appreciate your time. This is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host. Brent, thank you very much, brother.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5Talents podcast.